Rick Barnes in the Sweet 16 should go to the Elite Eight with a very favorable matchup in the third round of the NCAA tournament. Where would that rank him among Tennessee's greatest coaches of all time? We'll start with basketball. It's brought to you by Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn Vision Center, done locally and done right. I love Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn in Knoxville because their doctors care about you and they're local. Got other vision centers that'll fly people in from all over the place, all over the country to do LASIK and cataract surgery. I don't know about you, but I like to know my surgeon. No glasses, no contacts. I'm golden. So let's start with basketball. Bruce Pearl led Tennessee to the Elite Eight once. Jerry Green was knocking on the door. We talked about that infamous night in Austin, Texas, when they couldn't beat North Carolina because a guy named Julius Peppers came into the game, was completely different than Brendan Hayward. So the list of successful basketball coaches is not really long. Kevin O'Neal stockpiled talent. Wade Houston had a son named Allen. You want to go back, way back. Ray Mears was a legendary marketer and coach. But I'm going to be honest with you, it's a little before my time to tell you that he's a true X's and O's guy. I don't know. But what he did in marketing the sport should never be forgotten. So I ask you, today's tough question brought to you by Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn. Quite simply, Caleb, if Tennessee wins, get to the Elite Eight, are we having a real conversation that Rick Barnes is the best coach in Tennessee basketball history?
We're having a strong conversation.
I agree.
If he gets to the Elite Eight, I think he surpasses Bruce Pearl. Now, Bruce Pearl did win.
In stature,
yes. Now, Bruce Pearl and Rick Barnes both each won one SEC regular season title. There's caveats to both of them, though. When Bruce Pearl won his, the SEC was in two divisions at the time, so you would split the regular season title with the West Division winner, if that makes sense. When Rick Barnes won his, I don't think he should have been given it because Tennessee and Auburn had the same record that year, but Auburn beat Tennessee. But apparently the SEC doesn't care about head-to-head. If you are tied for the same record, you are co-champions at the end of the year. You both get to win it. So it's hazy either way. Here's where it's a difference. Rick Barnes won an SEC tournament. Nobody else since Don DeVoe has won an SEC tournament at Tennessee. And that's a huge deal to win it. I know we talk about the conference tournaments are throwaways, but that is a tournament championship trophy that you win.
Yes, you take that and you put that in your trophy case.
Exactly. And Rick Barnes got that. And he had Tennessee at number one for 3 weeks. Bruce Pearl had them at number one for 48 hours. And he has a 30-win season, just like Bruce Pearl had one 30-win season. So I think he surpasses Bruce Pearl. The question does become Ray Mears. It was a different time. Ray Mears, as far as I'm aware, only made it to the NCAA tournament 3 times, and they never really made it that far. But what we have to remember is during that time, the NCAA was so outdated, they only took the conference tournament champion for the longest time, or the conference regular season champion. And that's why I think you know this. There was a point in college basketball where the NIT was more high profile than the NCAA tournament because of that stupid thing they were doing with.
To me, Caleb, comparing Barnes and Mears is like comparing Fulmer and Neyland. I feel like we could go roundabout with either all day, and you and I may end up agreeing or disagreeing, but we could have that conversation forever. It was essentially 2 completely different sports. I mean, really, wasn't it?
That's fair. It was. I disagree. I don't think Fulmer and Neyland is that close. I don't think anybody can be clear compared to Neyland.
No, I don't either. But I'm just saying, if you compared the different eras, that's 50 years apart.
You're right. That's where it does get tricky, is because it's so far apart. But I still think it's fair to coaches are tasked with dealing with the sport that's in front of them and using their intellect to adapt to it and get out ahead of it, whatever that may be at the time. Ray Mears did that better than anybody. Let's just call it what it is. I mean, Ray Mears was, how do you get Bernard King and Ernie Grunfeld to Knoxville in 1977?
I don't know. I mean, I've heard the stories behind it. It still sounds like an incredible sell. Here's the other thing, too, is Tennessee basketball second in wins all time to Kentucky, which they are in the SEC, just like they're second all time in wins to Alabama in football. Are they second all time in basketball wins to Kentucky if Ray Mears doesn't come up with the term Big Orange Country? And I spoke to him about that one time. I believe he did come up with that, and the university stole it from him. But if he doesn't come up with that, if he doesn't market it, if he doesn't get Ernie and Bernie, is Tennessee basketball just another Ole Miss?
Yeah, probably.
I mean, those are foundational pieces that you lay that you build everything else off of. If you don't have a good foundation, it ain't happening.
Right, exactly. And I would take it a step further. I'm going to be honest, because as you know, Ray Mears came around the same time Doug Dickey did. Both of them were very, very involved in kind of bringing Tennessee, should we say, to the modern era of sports, just like modernizing it to a certain degree. Doug Dickey installed the power tee, running through the tee. Ray Mears was doing the same thing with basketball. If Ray Mears isn't doing what he's doing, I'm not sure Tennessee football has its run in the 80s and the 90s. I think a lot of those traditions really carried over to the football program and the university as a whole. And so Ray Mears goes beyond basketball. And another question is, if Ray Mears doesn't have a health issue, do you think eventually Ray Mears wins a national championship in Tennessee? I do.
I wouldn't bet anybody to win a national title, but he would be very, very close. Like, how long did Dean Smith go before he won his first? It was quite a while.
I think he took over North Carolina before Ray Mears took over Tennessee, and he didn't win a national championship until after Ray Mears was forced into retirement.
He won it in 84, didn't he?
Yeah, I'm looking it up now. 82.
Okay, 82. So, yes, I would have said Dean. So I guess I would have said Ray Mears, too. I mean, if I'm going to say Dean Smith, I thought in 1980, I was young, but I thought, yeah, he's going to end up winning one. He's North Carolina, for goodness sake. Good morning to a ton of our listeners out there. Oddspot's pointed out where Coach K complimented Tennessee. I didn't see that. All I've seen is Duke fans and Duke analysts ripping Tennessee for playing too physical, which is so ironic to me in a game that they played physical as well. Good morning to all of y'all. Smoky Mountain Red, Travis. And Travis says, did Caleb steal Shooter McGavin's jacket? I love it. That is a strong jacket.
I did not steal his hair. My hair is horrible today, guys. Just so y'all know.
I think you look fantastic. The Shooter McGavin's jacket probably deserves a t-shirt right there. And not having double Z, Zakai Ziegler scares me for this game. Agreed. Smoky Mountain Red said, I do not recall a team where I have to I keep having to look up their names to how to spell them. Trust me, I can definitely identify with that as we write about a lot of Tennessee basketball on Off the Hook Sports. So at the end of the day, would you have him surpassing Bruce Pearl, number 2 to Ray Mears?
Yeah, I'd have him surpass Bruce Pearl. He'd be number 2 to Ray Mears. And people are going to say Bruce Pearl did more in fewer years, but it's Bruce Pearl's fault he only had 6 years. I mean, that's on Bruce Pearl. That's not on anybody else. So okay. One quick thing I want to throw in, because the Coach K thing that was brought up, that is true. I actually have to give some credit to, as much as I've criticized Duke fans and Homer media, the same way I criticize Alabama fans and Homer media, I give Nick Saban props. Coach K, he basically said Tennessee was a bad matchup for us. They played more physical. And he even said it's not that maybe we could have played better, but it was really about what Tennessee did. And John Shire in his post-game interview came out and said, Mark Mitchell, I think was his name, the Duke player that was out, he said that's no excuse they didn't have Zakai Ziegler. So the Duke players and coaches are off the hook to me when I do, no pun intended, since that's our namesake.
It's a good pun. It's a good play.
Yeah, they are off the hook to me for the criticism I give. You see why Coach K is a 5-time national champion. Wasn't making any excuses. The Duke media and the Duke homers and the national media that runs cover for Duke is a totally different story, and I will go with them all day.
Okay, I want to ask you where you would have, if Rick Barnes, that's the big if he makes the Elite Eight, where you would have him among all coaches at Tennessee, which is a bit more difficult. For the record, if he makes the Elite Eight, I think he's equal to what Bruce Pearl has done. I would not put Rick Barnes ahead of Bruce Pearl at this point. I would put Rick Barnes and Bruce Pearl basically even. And my caveat, though, is if Rick Barnes goes to the Final Four, he is the best coach in Tennessee history, and that includes Mears. So I would have him third, even with a win. But if he goes to the Final Four, that is official in my mind. He is the best coach in Tennessee basketball history. The reason I have Bruce Pearl up there is we talk about foundational pieces. I thought Bruce Pearl laid a lot of really strong foundational pieces for Tennessee. You could argue, no, they didn't really need that. They had Jerry Green, who won a lot of games. But in the basketball community, they were kind of viewed as a team that had a lot of talent, that won a lot of games by default. So when Bruce Pearl came in and showed that his X's and O's were ahead of the game, I love what he did on inbounds plays. That to me was a game changer. That made Tennessee seriously respectable, got them to number one. So I would still have Bruce Pearl just barely. I'm curious your thoughts on the message board. Go ahead and get on board. If Rick Barnes wins, makes the Elite Eight, is he the best coach in Tennessee basketball history? Now, how about Tennessee coaching history? I would definitely have him behind. Well, right now, I've got him behind Bruce Pearl and Ray Mears. And I'm not going to get into all the non-revenue sports, but I will say this. He would be ahead of or behind Pat Summitt, General Neyland, and then Phillip Fulmer, if I quickly throw out some names in my mind. How about you?
All three of those. I'm going to put him behind a few other football coaches. I agree with Pat Summitt, General Neyland, and Phil Fulmer. And you're saying if he gets to the Final Four, this is if he gets to the Final Four, where do we put him, right?
No, I'm still saying Elite Eight. So let's
okay.
for the purpose of this, let's say Elite Eight. And also, are you factoring in that football just means more?
I mean, yes, but I'm also factoring in actual results. So, okay, he gets to the Elite Eight. Okay, say I'm still having him behind Ray Mears. Ray Mears won 3 SEC titles at Tennessee regular season. No one else has won more than 1. So I've got him behind Ray Mears. I've got him behind Pat Summitt and General Neyland are obvious. Phillip Fulmer's an obvious. Those are national championship coaches. I got him behind Doug Dickey because Doug Dickey won 2 SEC titles, and he technically has a national championship, guys. 1967 Tennessee claims. You can feel however you want about that, but Tennessee does claim the title that year. So I've got him behind Dickey. I would maybe have him. Yeah, I would maybe have him on the majors level, and then that's where majors gets the edge because football means more. Because majors did have 2 top 5 finishes, 3 top 10 finishes, won 3 SEC titles. Never won an SEC title outright that wasn't by default. That's the only knock against majors because the 85 and 90 SEC titles were only won because Florida was on probation. But he, for what it's worth, he's got 3 SEC titles and 2 Sugar Bowl wins. And you can't take that away from him.
If Tennessee does lose in the Elite Eight, and I don't think they will, but you would have 2 careers that are very similar at Tennessee in Majors and Rick Barnes. Long runs, lots of wins. What did you get out of it if they don't make the Final Four or win the Final Four? Because in my mind, I've always said this, making the Final Four is, in my mind, analogous to winning a national championship to some extent in football, because you have to get really lucky to win a Final Four. You have to hope you don't run into a hot shooting team. You have to hope that you shoot it well. So if you make the Final Four in and of itself and what that does for a program and what kind of publicity that brings, that to me is somewhat analogous to winning a national title in football. You agree with that?
I see that. I think my thing with majors, though, it's not so much the national title. I think that Fulmer somewhat rode a wave of what Major spent 12 years building at Tennessee to try to he modernized Tennessee football more than a lot of coaches. And Johnny Majors and Doug Dickey together. Johnny Majors was really trying to recruit national, and he installed the pro style in the 80s at Tennessee and really focused on speed at the receiver position, realizing where Tennessee had the edge. And then Doug Dickey using his connections to make sure Tennessee scheduled national games before national TV was a thing. I think those 2 things really set the tone for Tennessee in the 90s to do what it did. And I can't, you talk about Bruce Pearl laying the foundation. I'm that way with Johnny Majors. I can't take away the work Johnny Majors did, the state of the program that Tennessee was in when Johnny Majors took over, and the work he did to really just completely revamp it. I can't take that away from him.